Our next keynote speaker for the day is a woman who is a self-proclaimed lifer at PwC, barring a 3-year break that she took to raise her daughter, wife of a naval officer who moved around the country whenever he had to, and one of the first women admitted as a partner to the firm in 1997. Now she is the global diversity leader and is on the global leadership team, a position which is also the first for a woman out of India. She has spoken of the confidence women need to have to say no at work or at home and not feel guilty about it. Ladies and gentlemen, Sharmila Karve, partner at Waterhouse.
So I have gone through every one of those. I can absolutely assure you of that. Bad language, dropping things, getting confused, wanting to just not wake up in the morning. Every one of this is something that I can relate to. I was actually worried that they were going to show a video of me on a Segway, which is what they have taken. And I was trying to kind of figure out the connection between a Segway and what we were trying to do over here. And then I read the dictionary meaning of Segway, and it said to transition from one thing to another without interruption. I think that was the most subtle message that Job Soha was trying to give me. When I actually got on the Segway and I realized how hard it is to keep your balance, I said, well, if I've been able to balance my work and life, this is something I can do. And that's what I kept trying to tell myself, that balancing is not difficult. You just need to make sure that you keep at it. One of the reasons that I'm here is, when I met Neha and we were talking about jobs for her and talking about how is it that we get more women to come back in the workforce. And she heard from me that I had taken a break for 3 years. And in those 3 years, I promise you, I did nothing related to professional work. She said, you have to share your story, because if you could do it at a point of time in your life when diversity, work-life balance, flexibility, were not even things that you talked about in the workplace, and if you could do it at that point of time, you need to get up there and tell people how you did it. And when I heard, the earlier, I think there was a question that said that E&Y takes women back into the workforce and they take it, there's a 5-year break and they don't conduct an interview, and is that right? Let me assure you, if my firm had taken my interview, I wouldn't be standing over here. The 3 years that I was out of work, I did nothing to stay in touch with the topic. So why did they take me back? They took me back based on what I had done in the 6 years that worked with them earlier. And I think that's good enough. If the people know you, if they know your work style, your work ethics, your values, and what your clients think of you, it's not impossible to get back. So I'd just like to kind of answer that question, that 5 years break, it's very hard to go through a technical interview and get the job back. So I think it's a great thing what these guys are doing. So just in terms of my journey, I started my article straight out of college, got married in the 2nd year of articleship, continued because I realized that marrying a Navy man meant a lot of fun, but not enough of money in the bank. So continued working, and then my husband got transferred out, which is so typical of the Indian Navy, right? I also discovered that I was going to have a baby at that point of time, and that baby, who's a big girl, is sitting in the audience, listening to her mother, and she's here to stand up and say that she's lying whenever I exaggerate, right? So it was a big decision. At one level, I knew that I always wanted to take a break when my child was born, right? It was something that I was very, very clear about. But at another level, when I actually told my firm that, look, my husband is getting transferred and I want to move out, they said, oh, really? We're going to promote you. And then you sit back and say, okay, do I still want to go? Then I say, no, okay, I really want to go. It's something I wanted to do. Then they say, well, we're planning to send you on a secondment to Canada. Now, in those days, this was unheard of. Again, I kind of go home and look at my husband and say, what should I do? And my husband is a very smart man. He told me that your decisions are yours. I do not want to hear for the rest of my life that I did this for you. So he says, I'm not going to be involved in this. Whatever you do, whatever you decide, I'm okay with it. Once you've decided, then I'll tell you what my decision is, right? So that's where it was. Again, I said, well, I've always known that I wanted to be at home. So even if the firm is constantly throwing things at me, is it something that takes away from what I always wanted to do? And the answer was very clear to me that no, I wanted to be at home with my daughter. So we moved to Cochin. There was no chance of me picking up a job over there at all. 3 years we moved around, and then fortunately when my daughter was about 3, we came back to Bombay. And as I said, went back to the firm that I had worked for 6 years because nobody else knew me. And the minute I walked in, I was meeting the senior partner, and he said, "Oh, we're happy to have you back. We know you, and we're delighted to have you back. And what would you like to? When would you like to start?" And I said, "We're getting transferred back, blah blah blah." And he said, "Okay, you can come back as a manager because that's what you were going to be when you left, because we were going to promote you in any case." And you know what I said? I said, "No." I said, "I don't want to come back as manager. I haven't worked for 3 years. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to deal with being a manager. I would actually like to come one level lower." He looked at me as if I was insane. Today, when I think back about it, I was insane, right? Because I came back at a designation that was lesser than what they were offering me. But they didn't think of it that way because I was still doing all the work that was expected of a manager. So there were no concessions made for the fact that I was actually working at a level lower. It's just that I got a lesser salary and a different designation. The only concession that I got was, I said, "Look, since you're offering me a job as a manager and I'm saying I want to come back as deputy manager, please make sure that you don't wait till the point of time that you have promotions," and promotions happened only in April every year, "to promote me. The minute you think I'm ready for the job, please promote me." And at some level my organization was very, very fair, and they did promote me much earlier than the promotion season. But that's where today, when I sit back and we talk about women not having ambition, women not having the courage to ask for what they want, and not raising their voice or not saying, "I can do it," I think this is where I come from. I mean, I don't know if I'd come back as a manager at that point of time, would I be at some other designation or some other level today? I don't know the answer to that. But do I regret not taking what the firm offered me? Absolutely. And that's my advice to all of you. You can do a lot more than you think you can. And if your organization is willing to recognize that and they're actually giving you something, it's not because they want women in leadership. It's not because they think diversity is a good thing to have. It's because they think you deserve it and you can do it, right? So please don't ever say no to opportunities. Okay, so I came back as manager. I got made partner within 3 years. Again, one thing I've been very clear about in my life is I've always known what I wanted. And that actually made life a lot easier. So I knew I wanted to get married. I knew I wanted to have a baby. I knew I wanted to take a break when my baby was born. And I knew that I wanted to be made partner by a certain year. So in my mind, I had, year 2000 as, the Y2K kind of thing, that if I don't get made partner by then, I will step back and figure out what I need to do in my life. But I got made partner at 97 and, in 1997, and, it was a different world. There used to be meetings when I was the only woman in the room who was less than 35 years. There used to be not just one, but almost every meeting that I attended, I was the only one wearing a colorful outfit because the men were in grays and brown, blacks and browns, right? And most of the time, I was at least 15 years younger than most of the men in the room. Was it easy? It wasn't. Did it need me to kind of thumb the table a little bit, get a little more louder, get a little more aggressive in terms of making sure that my points were heard? Absolutely, right? But again, that's my second advice, that as women, we have to make sure that we are heard. We have to make sure, and that's actually my, I call it my mantras, but I have 3 mantras, and the first one is exactly this, that you have to be bold. And being bold does not mean being overly aggressive or in your face. It's just being very direct and demanding what you want, saying what you want to say without waiting for other people to read your mind and then tell you what needs to be done. So it is extremely important. And, frankly, being bold is not just applicable to women. It's just applicable to everybody who's at, who's at the table, right? So anyway, I became a partner. I was a client service partner. At some point of time, I decided that I wanted to wind down. I moved to Pune because I was planning my retirement, and I moved to Pune, tried to take things easy. It didn't work, so I moved back to Bombay. And in 2009, I took over as head of audit. And then in 2012, I moved as head of risk and quality for the India firm, and then now I'm the global diversity leader. In my entire journey, I think the one thing that I've absolutely loved is the variety of jobs. I've enjoyed every 3 years having to do something different because it means relearning, reskilling, and of course keeping me excited about what I've been doing. What is it that I would like to kind of tell you? We conducted a thought leadership which was released on Women's Day just about 2 weeks back, and we surveyed more than 3,600 women across the world. And some of the themes that came out in terms of what is it that women expect from employers, what is it that women expect from companies, are very similar to the themes that were kind of discussed on this stage. One of the key things that came out is women want trust and transparency. What is it that's expected of me in my role? What is it that I need to do to be able to get ahead? What is it that I'm doing and what is it that I'm not doing? Many a times I have people walk into my office and say, the promotion list came out and my name is not on the promotion list. And now I'm being told that you didn't do A, B, C, D, and that's why, you didn't get promoted. So I have 2 questions for organizations. One is that, are we making sure that we train our managers to have those very direct and clear conversations with their people to walk them through what's going well and what's not going well? And these can't be just end of the year conversations, because if they're end of the year conversations, you're dealing with somebody who's already demotivated because they've not got what they wanted, and it's very hard for you to kind of talk to them about what they need to do better. So how is it that we as organizations are helping to have these conversations year round with our teams, with our people who report into us, making sure that we get them ready for the next level? And the second thing that I expect or would like to think of, that organizations should think of doing is, how is it that we are helping people get to the next level? I think again, that's something that we probably don't do enough of. There's lots of training done, but is this training kind of structured for individual needs, or is it training that we put 50 people, 80 people in the room without really thinking through what is it that individuals need, right? From a people perspective, again, when I said, one of my mantras of be bold, the second mantra is ask, don't assume. How many times as women we actually ask for things? Do we raise our hands when there's an opportunity? Or do we say that, no, if he thinks I'm good or if she thinks I'm good, they'll give it to me? Do we say that I want to do this? I mean, I again remember a story where there was an article, and there was a friend of mine who was also an article with me, and we were told that women articles are not stand-out station. And this is what the partners had decided. And we walked in and said that, no, we'd like to go outstation. So the deal was that if the 2 of us went together, then we would be allowed to go outstation. So again, if we had not asked for it, we wouldn't have gone. I mean, there were lots of conditions that were put. If you go together, if you don't stay in a hotel, you have to stay at relatives, and you kind of, you realize that you have to navigate your way through this. You can't expect everything. But started with the 2 of us going together, then it started with, okay, me going alone but staying at a friend's place. Then it moved to, okay, you can go alone and you can stay in a hotel. And it then reached the stage where we now tell, or I remember when I was interviewing people, I would tell people, please get your parents ready that you will have to travel. This is a part of the job, and we don't want you coming back and saying that, no, my parents are not comfortable with it, right? So these are things that you need to keep in mind. You need to ask for things, you need to demand things, and you need to have conversations in terms of asking for things with the right people in the organization. You cannot do this with your peer because he or she does not have the ability to influence things. Are you asking your manager? Are you asking your senior manager? And are you then articulating what is it that you want and what is it that you're looking for? The third thing that I realized in my journey is that, and I think again I heard it in the panel, that it's perfectly okay to say no. We, again, many a times, we're very hesitant about saying no, whether it's with our family or with work, because we're worried from a family perspective, what will my mother-in-law think of me, what will my husband think of me, and how can I not do this? It's expected as a daughter-in-law, it's expected as a daughter for me to do these things. Similarly, in organization, if I may say no to this job, will it impact my career? Will it be taken negatively? I think, again, we need to be very clear of what our priorities are. There are points of time in your life where your family takes precedence. There are points of time in your life when your firm takes precedence or your organization takes precedence. And you need to be very clear about what you're choosing. And once you've decided that right now, I have a young child and my child needs me, or there's a crisis in the organization and the organization needs me, you just need to stop feeling guilty and stop worrying about the consequences of your saying no and just go with it. My mother-in-law was a working woman. My mother was, a homemaker. And when I think back in terms of why did I succeed, I think it was a combination of having a working mother-in-law and a non-working mother, which kind of kept me balanced, because you'd constantly get different, viewpoints from both of them. And for me, again, it was a diversity of two views that enabled me to think through what is it that I wanted to do, right? So it used to be quite funny at times as to how completely different the views were, but it enabled me to think and, decide what I wanted to do for myself. Again, as a mom, as a wife, I was on another panel a couple of years back, and there was a very interesting remark that one of the lady panelists made. She said, as women, we end up spending probably more time selecting the mobile phone we want to buy than having very direct conversations with our boyfriends or our fiancés or, our husbands or partners to be, right? And that's something, again, I urge. It pains me at times when I hear girls walking to my office and saying that I want to work, but my, husband's family doesn't like the idea of a working woman. I want to work, but I don't have the family support at home. How come these are not conversations you have earlier? How come you're not telling whoever you're going to choose to spend the rest of your life with that for me, working is important? Again, to share a story, my husband always knew I wanted to work, right? I was an article, I hadn't even qualified, but, he always knew I wanted to work. There was a point of time when, his senior picked up the phone and told him that there is an opportunity in Singapore and we want to, send you over there. And I remember I was sitting at, sitting at his side, and he just said, no, sir, I can't go to Singapore. You know that Sharmila is working and she won't be able to quit her job. He didn't even ask me. He didn't even, check, do you think that, and though that actually offended me, because I said, Abhay, how could you say no right away? Don't you think that you should have asked me whether I could have gone to Singapore? And my, his response to that was, you wouldn't have. So why are you even having this conversation, right? But I think that's the support. That's the, that's the way that I made it very clear to him. So there was no angst or no, hassles at home in terms of, this is what you're doing, this is your job, but don't you realize that my job is equally important? I mean, his job is important. In our house, his job is very important. My job is equally important. There's never a point of time where, any one job is more important than the other. And that's how you need to create, the structures in your life, that you have a support system at home, amongst your friends, amongst your colleagues, which help you succeed. It's really difficult to do that. And that's in fact the, when I talk about the three things that came out of the survey, which I mentioned earlier, one was trust and transparency. The third was actually about what is it that organizations and support systems can do in helping you succeed at your job. So whether it means flexibility, whether it means working from home, whether it means having in place, policies that organizations can help them, and it also means how are you creating those support systems for yourself, right? The second thing that came out of the survey was this, and I'm not going to spend any time talking about it because the earlier panel talked about why men and women need coaches and mentors and sponsors. Because today, when you look at organizations, people at the senior level are mainly male, or at least 75% male. So it is very, very important that you have somebody who's guiding you, helping you navigate, who's walking you through what is it that you need to do to get to the next level. And more times than not, it will be a male sponsor or a male coach or a male mentor, just because there are more men in leadership than there are women. Just a couple of days back, we got a question when we talked about, we had released a blog on this Mentor Her, and somebody said, why are you talking about Mentor Her? Because are you saying that you need a man to succeed, and men are very, can a woman succeed without a man? I mean, that's not the way I look at it. I look at it that because in organizations at a leadership level, you have so many more men, You need the men to understand what it is that takes a woman to succeed. You need a man to understand why is it that women ask for some of the things that they need to ask. I mean, and how is it that they can help us? Like we mentioned earlier that women are not demanding. They don't sit at the table and negotiate pay hikes. I think Barkha also talked about it in her talk earlier, that there was, she and a colleague were sitting and a colleague was all about what is it that will take him to do something, and she's saying, I was like, okay, my work will speak for myself. That's no longer the case. As women, we need to speak up, we need to ask for things, and unless you have somebody who's been through that, unless you have somebody who can coach you, guide you, and walk along with you, through your journey, it's not going to be easy. It's not impossible, but it's definitely not easy. One more thing I'd like to tell and ask the women leaders in this room is, how many times do we actually stand up and share our stories? For many years after I became a partner, a lot of people would ask me that, has it been easy? And my response would be, oh yeah, I have a great organization, I had great, support system, and it wasn't difficult at all. But when I think back, I tell myself that I was actually not being fair. It wasn't easy. And the minute I tried to say that it was easy for me, I used to always think that the woman who's listening to me, the girl who's listening to me, would probably go back thinking if it was easy for her, there's either something wrong with me or something wrong with the organization today, because of which I'm finding it so hard. So I think it's very, very important that we share our stories, we share the ups and downs that we've had in our career. We are seen as role models who've gone through it all and who've not had an easy path to success, because only then will women understand what it is that has to be done, and it is a tightrope that you're walking many a times in your career, and it's only when they see that there are other women who've gone through it and have achieved things and have gone there that will make it easier for everybody.